let's not forget, if you fill your head with so much work, you lose the opportunity to be creative. You lose the opportunity to think differently. You lose the opportunity to expand your mind. And also, like, every part of your body, your brain eventually needs a break too, right? So you have to give it a bit of diversity to think about different things, because otherwise I find I just get stale as a result, and I just don't think creatively or innovatively anymore.
Hello and welcome to this week's episode of the Burnt Chef Journal, a hospitality-specific podcast dedicated to challenging mental health stigma and conversations designed to inspire a new, healthier, happier, and more sustainable hospitality profession.
Hello, everybody. My name's Hulya. I am your Burnt Chef Ambassador, and I'm pleased to be guest hosting another mini podcast series for the Burnt Chef Project, supporting our hospitality sector by openly discussing mental health and providing enriching conversations to inspire and motivate you. Did you know that 4 out of 5 hospitality professionals report having experienced at least one mental health issue during their career? The Burnt Chef Project is a globally recognised not-for-profit social enterprise fully committed to making the hospitality profession healthier and more sustainable by focusing on people's well-being first. This is why it has never been more important to be talking about our mental health. For more information on this amazing project, go to www.theburnchefproject.com. Now, a little bit more about me. I'm a professional chef, educator, speaker, self-discovery coach, writer, and radio personality. I've made it my purpose to guide midlife women to live a life of freedom and authenticity, taking them on a journey of self-discovery through the power of cooking and coaching. I learned firsthand that to make any real change in your life, you have to start from within. You can find me online at therecipeforlife.com. So this week, I am so excited about our podcast topic. It's an issue very close to my own heart. We are going to be talking about burnout. And this is an issue, this is a situation that many of us face, particularly in hospitality, and specifically women. Being a woman in hospitality can be quite tough, can also be very rewarding. So this week, I'm pleased to introduce my guest, Naureen Ahmed. And she is going to be talking about burnout from the perspective of the female lens, talking about her own experiences and the women she works with on a daily basis. So, of course, burnout is not a gender issue, but we are going to be focusing on the female perspective. So Naureen is a seasoned hospitality professional, a fervent community builder, an engaging storyteller, and the visionary founder of Inspiring Women in Hospitality. With a life journey that saw her living in 4 different countries by the age of 10, Naureen's path to the hospitality industry felt predestined. Her academic pursuits led her to the EHL Hospitality Business School in Lausanne, where she felt an immediate kinship with fellow students, each with their own unique stories. Embarking on her own career with a position at the landmark London Hotel, Naureen quickly embraced the operational aspects of hospitality, setting the stage for a significant tenure at STR. Over 12 years, she transitioned through roles from analyst to head of departments, playing a pivotal role in transforming STR into the recognized brand it is today. Naureen's leadership is marked by inclusivity and a focus on building multicultural team environments. Recognizing the underrepresentation of women in hospitality, Naureen launched the Inspiring Women in Hospitality podcast to amplify female voices and inspire change within the industry. Her efforts expanded in September 2023 with the creation of the Inspire community, a platform designed to foster support among women through mentorship and career development decisions Wow. So welcome, Naureen. I feel like I should be giving you a big round of applause now. That is just so incredible. It's such an incredible journey. And I'm very, very, very blessed to be a member of that wonderful community as well.
Thank you so much for having me.
Yeah, it's all right. It's my pleasure. Thank you for being on our podcast. We very much appreciate you. And yeah, I just want to dive straight in, really, because obviously this is a topic I know that's very close to your heart. So I'm just going to throw the platform out there to you, and I'm going to ask you, burnout, tell us more, and why?
Yeah, so I think, having experienced it firsthand, I can know the impact that it has both on you mentally and physically. At the time, I didn't realize I was going through burnout, of course. It took me actually a failed trip back home to Bangladesh, where I didn't get my passport back in time for a visa application because I was meant to be going to India afterwards. That kind of forced me to cancel all my plans and stay at home for Christmas. And I finally had to stop. I just had to stop, and I couldn't do anything. I couldn't go anywhere. And I got sick. I got really, really sick. I was sick for about a month. I got a really bad, cold, chest infection. My body finally said enough's enough. And yeah, I was really, physically unwell for about a month. And it got me thinking, this happened at the time when I was promoted to being a manager for the first time. And I really felt like I had to prove myself. I had to prove that I deserved that promotion, that I deserved the position, and that I had to work all hours to make that happen. No one asked me to do it. I did it basically to myself. And the other thing I didn't do enough of as well was asking for help. So when I got back to work, I just said, okay, I can't function like this anymore. What can we do? Right. So we found a way to expand my team. And then I just started setting some boundaries myself. I was like, I'm not going to be getting up at the crack of dawn to be in the office by, 6, 7, 8, then still there at 9 o'clock at night, sometimes even coming in on weekends. I'm like, this is just a not healthy environment anymore. So I said normal-ish hours. If I do have to stay late, then, not more than a certain time, definitely not checking emails when I get home, nothing on the weekends, and just really, I guess, set some boundaries and sort of reclaim my life. And it was hard to do that, but I realized I had to prioritize myself, because if I didn't, no one else would. Because if you keep doing it, quite frankly, no one's going to stop you.
So true. Absolutely. And I was actually going to come back to a point about that, because you said that you ended up obviously having to take the time off. And I always believe in divine time, and things happen for a reason. Obviously, you didn't get your visa, so you had to stay. You had no choice but to stay home. So I guess things caught up with you a little bit in the end, right? But then I'm really inspired, by the fact that when you did go back to work, you approached someone, you spoke to your manager, your supervisor, and you said, this has got to stop. So tell me about that, because that takes a lot of courage.
Yeah, that was such a long time ago now, so I kind of have it blurred out a little bit in my mind. But, it must have changed, because after that, my team did grow. I did hire. I was able to maybe also delegate some more. That's also something that I did. And just being vocal about, realistically, these are the things I can deliver on. These are the things I cannot. And just have that conversation. Yeah, absolutely. It was definitely not easy, but, my body had told me that you can't keep going like this.
Yeah, absolutely. What they say, the body keeps score, right? And it does. It tells you, it does notify you. And so, so I think your courage, obviously, again, was about setting your boundaries, something that, especially as women, I think we can struggle to do, right?
Yeah, we want to give. We want to prove ourselves. We feel like we have to work twice as hard to get the same opportunities. And, we set ourselves some sometimes unrealistic expectations on ourselves. And I'm not quite sure where it comes from. I haven't quite figured that one out yet. But yeah, I think sometimes we're too hard. We're too hard on ourselves.
Yeah, no, absolutely. I think you're absolutely right. I think we are too hard on ourselves. I think we sometimes, often as women, we believe we have to be doing everything, right? Or maybe we're conditioned by society to be thinking that we have to be doing everything. I think that is one of the issues, really. And I think it'd be nice to sort of maybe talk more about as well how you prioritized yourself, because ultimately that's what you did. You decided to put yourself first, right?
Yeah, I think, at that point also I'd stopped doing everything else outside of work. I stopped going to the gym. I'd probably stopped having a social life as well, or it was just, cramming it all into the weekend. So I think in a way it was claiming, my life back. Started going back into the gym, started doing some of the things that I really wanted to do, that I enjoyed doing, and, doing other things that were also important to me. Because let's not forget, if you fill your head with so much work, you lose the opportunity to be creative. You lose the opportunity to think differently. You lose the opportunity to expand your mind. And also, like, every part of your body, your brain eventually needs a break too, right? So you have to give it a bit of diversity to think about different things, because otherwise I found I just get stale as a result, and I just don't think creatively or innovatively anymore.
Yeah, absolutely. I suppose it's that, I guess for some people, it's having that holiday, isn't it? Annual holiday, right? The annual break to recharge the batteries, to take that time out. But I always believe that it doesn't have to be as a big thing as much like that, isn't it? Right? To actually just go and say, right, okay, I know that in August, I'm going to have 2 weeks. I'm going to have 2 weeks off. Do you know what I mean? That actually there are other ways to prioritize yourself. There are other ways, and what would you suggest? There are other ways, I'm sure that we can to take that time out.
Mm-hmm. People often talk about work-life balance, but what I like to look at it instead is work-life integration, because it's how do we incorporate both into our life, right? Because we need both to, happily coexist. It's finding ways to happily coexist. So yes, you can look at it as, okay, every year I have, 2 major holidays, one in the summer, one in the winter. And if that's what it is, then that's what it is. But make sure that when you're taking those 2 weeks off, you take those 2 weeks off. That means no emails, no work, no phone, no nothing. Be there with, either if you're doing something on your own or with your family or whoever that may be, really take that time to shut off and disconnect. There are even retreats that you can go to where they say, turn your phone in, or silent retreats or whatever it is, whatever floats your boat, basically, right? Or it's things like, okay, I have, these hours of my day. How do I segment them? What am I giving my energy towards? How am I spending it? How much time do I want to spend at work versus at home, depending on your personal situation, whether you have family or not. What hobbies do you have? Oftentimes, this perhaps is a bigger question, and maybe I'm deviating a little bit away from your question, but, who are you? And when I ask that question, try and answer that question without giving your role or your title. I'm not just a mother. I'm not just a daughter. I'm not just the marketing director. I'm not just that. Who am I outside of these titles? And I don't think we spend enough time thinking about that. And we so self-identify with our work that we forget who we are truly in essence. So if we can spend some time connecting with that and understanding what are the things that really motivate us and drive us, whether you're introvert or extrovert, what gives you energy? What gives you energy? Where do you recuperate? Where do you do you need solitude? Do you need to be around other people? Knowing yourself, spending that time on reflection, self-awareness, all of that is required to then basically conserve our energy and understand in which places are we directing that at, different times of our life.
Absolutely. Yeah. I really love that. And you're right. Yeah. I completely agree with you. I think when someone asks you, who are you? Or, who am I? You ask yourself, who am I? It's all the hats you wear, isn't it? I am mum, sister, daughter, carer, I'm manager, director, I'm this, I'm chef. But actually getting back in touch with yourself and understanding yourself from within and becoming more self-aware is where I always believe you can make the biggest life changes, actually. And it empowers you. It gives you the courage to then set those boundaries. And, and I think sometimes there is a lot of fear around setting boundaries, right? Especially for women. I think we can, anyone really, but especially particularly for women, I feel that our boundaries sometimes are blurred. How did you feel when you were first sort of setting those boundaries with your employer?
It's that classic example, take care of yourself first before you take care of others. And, this can be, that example that they always have on the plane, put your mask on first before you give it to others. And I think that same goes in every other aspect of your life. Look after yourself, and then you can look after, the people around you. And that can be your family or your employer or, whoever you may be interacting with. So I think for me, it was understanding what are my requirements, what are my needs, and kind of making myself stick to my own boundaries, because no one else is really going to do that. So I think what you do is you communicate with your employer to say, okay, these are the things that I can deliver realistically. These are the things I cannot, and explain why you cannot, give context. Don't just say, I can't do it. Just say, okay, these are the things that I can. Can we work together to prioritize things? Where do you want me to focus my efforts? What is the strategic goals for the company, and how can the work that I'm doing align with that? And then kind of move your way backwards from that perspective as well. But ultimately, you're the one who is in charge of ensuring that you stick to those boundaries.
Yeah, brilliant. I love that. So let's talk more about gender balance. I know this is a topic very close to your heart, and I really want to hear more about your views on that actually in the sector.
Yes, gender balance is definitely a big one for me. And, part of the reason of why I'm doing what I'm doing, I think throughout my career, I was very fortunate to, meet some incredible women, working in a company that gave me some great visibility of our industry at a very macro level. So not only from sort of the performance perspective, because obviously I was working for STR, which is all about data, but, we got to work with companies literally all around the world. And, I would interact with our clients. I would attend conferences, events, I would see what the senior leadership looked like across different organizations. And it was mostly men. And I was like, what's going on? We have some incredible women in our industry. Why are we not seeing the same level of career progression, the same level of visibility? And that was really my motivation to, start what I started with, which was initially the podcast. And now, it's grown into the membership and coaching and other things. But of course, being the data person that I am, I have done a bit of research and trying to understand what does it mean to have, a more gender balanced leadership. Now, I don't have data that is specific to hospitality, unfortunately, but there's a lot of data across other industries and segments, which can then be translated into the hospitality sector. So there's some data that was research done by McKinsey. And I think if McKinsey does an annual study every year about women in the workplace, which is, the closest thing that we've got to research and data and gender. But they're also talking about gender equality and inclusivity. So they said on one stats that you can add $28 trillion to the global GDP if women were to participate in the economy equally to the men. That's insane. That's absolutely insane.
Yeah, that is insane. I'm literally like speechless. I'm speechless.
More data. Here they're saying 25% more likely to have above average profitability for those organizations that have sort of the top quartile of gender diversity on executive teams.
If you're enjoying this week's episode, consider heading over to our website and supporting our ongoing work in destigmatizing mental illness and creating a healthier, happier, and more sustainable industry by purchasing some of our branded merchandise. We have a whole range of t-shirts, hoodies, chef's jackets, well-being journals, plus a whole host more available on worldwide dispatch. All funds raised from sales of these items go towards free-to-access e-learning content, as well as providing free support systems and help for those who may be experiencing difficulty with their mental health.
I mean, that's significant, isn't it? I mean, 25%. Why wouldn't you? I mean, you'd have to sort of look at that from a financial perspective for any industry. And I've always wondered that, especially with hospitality. I mean, some stats I learned recently, in fact, was that in the workforce, on a sort of chef level and some sort of, mid-level in hospitality, it's actually 60% female. However, when it comes to actual leadership roles, it drops right down to something like 16%, 14%, 16%, somewhere around that. I mean, it's shocking. Really, it's shocking.
So there's definitely data out there to support the case for gender balance, right? Because when you have a more gender diverse leadership, you have more diversity of thought, right? Because if you have the same group of people in that mix who've all had the same experiences, who've all had like similar upbringing, background, exposure to things, they all think the same way. So when you start putting mix into that, and that it's not just gender, obviously within, in that case, we're talking about all kinds of diversity, right? When you add different diversity of thought, you will get different questions. You will get different answers to that. You will find different solutions that you will not do if you have a majority of one group of people, right? So that's where the benefit comes, because then you can start thinking about your organization in a different way.
Yeah, absolutely. 100%. I mean, you're right. We do need a balance. We need different perspectives. I mean, in the UK, it's a very multicultural country, really, and therefore, we want more people in hospitality, more diverse people in hospitality, we do, and more women. But why do you think then? Why do you think it is that we don't have as many women in those leadership roles? Why do you think that we do seem to suffer a bit in terms of the gender balance?
Well, that's something that I'm still actively looking into, and I'm still trying to get to the bottom of it. And I don't have a concrete answer for you yet. But what I can say from the work that I'm trying to do is looking at it from two perspectives. On one hand, it's the women ourselves who need to do a little bit of work in things like, okay, speaking up, asking for what you want, putting yourself out there, communicating, visibility, networking, putting yourself out there. It's a lot of work, stretch yourself, whole host of list of things that you can be doing. Really depends on case to case, right? But on the other hand, there's definitely a case for organizations themselves to look at their culture and understand, are they really truly being inclusive to foster an environment that everyone feels that they have equal opportunities and that they can grow their careers within those organizations? And, going back to stats, I can share another stat with you from the 200 plus interviews that I've done for my podcast. 51% of the women have gone on to start their own businesses. And look, I'm all for female entrepreneurs. They've all gone to be very successful. So they're all contributing to the economy, which is fantastic. On the other hand, they've left their corporate roles. So my perspective here is that they chose to start a business, which, as we know, is very hard, rather than having a conversation with whomever they were working with at the time to understand that they need flexibility. And flexibility can mean many things. It's not just work from home or remote working. It could also be part-time. It could be job sharing. It could be flexi hours. The list could go on. So I feel like there's an opportunity here for companies to look at their data, look at their staff, understand where's the leak, what's happening. Is there some consistency? Is there a trend that they can identify and tackle it from that perspective? What can they do to improve that and not let these individuals leave their organization? You've already spent time, money, effort into training and embedding them within the organization. Why do not want to continue that? There's other data that showcases that it costs you, 3 times the salary of one individual to hire someone new every single time, right? So that's a lot of money that we're losing out on, or that's costing you every single time.
Yeah, 100%. I really resonate with that whole sort of leaving the job and becoming an entrepreneur. And somehow that pathway seems so much more enticing when, like you're in a job and you're earning money and you're getting your salary, and there's a possibility of being able to move up the ladder, and yet you're willing to just leave that all and go and be an entrepreneur. Like,
and be a mom at the same time, because majority of the women who've done that, they're also parents. And I'm like, that's another full-time job as well. Like, I mean, you're at a greater risk of burnout at this point if you're trying to run a business and managing a family and a household at the same time. So I think there's even more risk there.
Yeah. Absolutely. And some mums who are single mums, they don't have another parent to help out. So, do you know what I mean? And then it's a double, triple whammy. I mean, honestly, I feel it. I know, because I'm one of those people. So it just resonates with me a lot. So I love one of the things that you were saying when we were talking about doing the podcast, and you sent me some notes over. And one of the things you said was, don't be afraid to be vulnerable. Mm. And I really love that. And, what does that look like for you? What does it look like to be vulnerable?
Well, I think this is a message both for women and men in this case. I think women, it's a lot easier for us to be vulnerable. And I've seen this time and time and time again. Every time I bring a group of women together, we're just so open with each other immediately, right? Whether it's been on one of my roundtables that I do in person or through my online monthly membership meetups, we're so ready to open ourselves and share that. And it builds such strong trust and creates such strong bonds that you feel that fellowship and you feel like you're not alone, right? And I think as soon as you put it out there, it's out, and then you get sort of that wonderful sense of trust and safety that you can just be who you are and share what you need to share. So, obviously we're doing it here together in a safe environment, which is incredibly important. So my hope is that, companies are also creating these safe environments that is encouraging their employees, both women and men, to be vulnerable, right? Because that's where then you can get to the root of things in terms of whether it is the challenges that they're facing at work or at home, it all blends over, and understand what are the things that can be put into place to support them to grow their careers, but then also for them to be effective, productive employees within the organization as well. So my question is, what are companies doing to encourage that kind of, safe environment? And at the same time, let's also not be afraid to express our vulnerability if that is something that we are going through. The hope is you have a manager or supervisor who's going to be receptive and listen and be there and give you that support. And if that is not happening, then we need to question that, and we need to understand why that is happening as well. I think there's so much gold that can be found when we are being vulnerable. It's not something that we should hide from.
Yeah, absolutely. That was really beautiful, actually, because I think there was a point you made there that I found really interesting, is the fact that as women, we take it all on ourselves. We assume we have the responsibility, we carry the responsibility, and we feel it's all on us, isn't it? And, not just women, I mean, in general as well. I know, again, it's not just a gender issue, but, especially in hospitality, I will have to say, is that you feel that if you speak up or you say something, you're the bad person, or if you make a point of raising or challenging anything, you're the bad person, And it's interesting, a friend of mine, she works in the public sector, so not quite hospitality, but she actually said something the other day, which I found really powerful, was that she said, I always speak up, I always challenge. They had some wellbeing at work workshop, which was really great. And she said that when it was done, when the workshop was done, and it was, it was like an hour long or something, she raised her hand because she wanted to know more information about X, Y, Z. And later on, all the people, all her colleagues were like, oh yeah, that was really good. I'm really glad that you did that. I'm really glad that you said that. And then she was laughing. She said to me, and I turned around and I said to them, yeah, well, you could have opened your mouth as well. You could have said something too. Why is everyone just waiting for me?
Absolutely. Everyone needs that one person in their company who's willing to speak up. But if you're not doing it also, then ask yourself why you're not doing it, right? Because also think about, with everything that you don't say, there's an opportunity cost associated with that. When you're not speaking up, when you're not saying what's on your mind, there's so many things going on here. So one, it could be a lost opportunity to get noticed. it's a lost opportunity for your company to get out of your head what could be a very valuable insight or a new idea or a new way of looking at things that could then help the organization potentially even make more money. Great, right? Be more efficient, whatever it could be. It's a lost opportunity to then perhaps get involved in another project to grow your career. I mean, I could probably just carry on, but that person who's speaking up, don't rely on them. Don't put it on all their shoulders either. Be there to support them too.
Yeah, absolutely. That's right. Exactly. I think, it's teamwork. It's a team effort. And also it means that that there are other people in the room that are on the same wavelength as you. And that there are people you can turn to and people you can talk to. And it lessens the load. It lessens the responsibility. It lessens taking on all of the issues. And again, it lessens that chance of burnout. It lessens that chance of being on the bottom end of the mental health scale. Right? It lessens that chance of feeling like there's no one out there to support you.
Exactly. There's absolutely no reason to feel like you're not alone. And I think women often do feel like they're alone. And that's part of the reason why I created my community. It's why I started the podcast. It's why I'm sharing the stories, because we shouldn't have to feel like we're the only one. And that's really sad. When I hear women say that to me, that really makes me sad. We're so ready to share, we're ready to be vulnerable, yet somehow we're not either getting the support that we need when we need it, or we're not asking for the support when we need it. And all of these things I'm trying to remove by having these conversations, by creating the community, recreating the space. And yeah, I mean, every time I remember all my roundtables that I've done, every time I do it for the first time, it's like a big group therapy session. Because there's so much that everyone has to get off their chest. And I'm like, don't hold it in for so long. Don't wait. But, who's creating that space to make that happen? Because we don't have these kind of conversations as organically or as naturally as we wanted, which is what I realized. I know I held in a lot. I definitely held in a lot throughout my career. And I don't want to have anyone else have to go through that either.
Yeah, I think that's really, absolutely. I agree. I don't want anyone else to go through that either. I totally agree with you. Don't hold it in. Release yourself of those, issues. Let it out. You know what I mean? Because you just honestly, you'll be surprised how much better you'll feel. And what was the other thing you were saying to me? Stop saying sorry. I thought, that is just priceless. Like, how can we stop saying sorry, Naureen?
The work in progress for me. I still catch myself. There's something I'm working on at the moment, and I want to start the sentence by look, I'm really sorry to bother you, but could you please, I'm like, Maureen, stop. Just stop. Don't apologize for owning your space. This is also a bit of a cultural thing. I blame England for teaching me this.
Yeah. I was literally just about to say, that's a very British thing. Sorry, someone treads on your foot. Oh, sorry, hits you, smashes you with a trolley in the supermarket. Oh, sorry about that. Yeah. It's definitely a very British thing. We do it all the time. I do it all the time, I have to say. And one of the things that I'm, obviously working on for myself, like you said, like for yourself, I'm working on myself and really guiding women to do is to live an unapologetic life, to be unapologetically you. To be in your own authentic self and just be honest with yourself. And yeah, so I think it's definitely about catching yourself, and also, I guess, bringing it back to mental health. We shouldn't have to apologize for feeling down or feeling bad or having to, take time off. Why are we doing that,
Yeah, and that's definitely one of the feelings that I did feel at the time when I was taking that time off, or, even during COVID. There was a time that the anxiety and depression got to a point where I just couldn't handle it anymore, and I needed to give myself that time and space. And, there's other women that I'm speaking to that are struggling through burnout, depression, whatever it may look like. And 9 out of 10 times, they're all feeling guilty that they're feeling like this and that they're taking time out and they're prioritizing themselves. And I'm like, we've got to stop that, because that doesn't help your mental health any further, right? So, prioritizing yourself is important, because then when you do that and you come back stronger, you come back better as well for yourself, for the people around you.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. Fill your own cup first before you try to fill the cup of anyone else, because otherwise, you can't help others effectively. You can't help them if you don't help yourself. I mean, it's as simple as that, isn't it? So definitely, wear the oxygen mask before you try to put it on others, for sure. Yeah. Definitely. Well, Naureen, this has been absolutely amazing. You have been a wonderful podcast guest. Now, what I want you to do is tell everybody where they can find you, how they can get in touch with you.
Normally I would have said my website, but I'm going through like a massive IT challenges at the moment. So the best place to find me is on LinkedIn at the moment. It is safe. I am connected. As long as there's not a major outage like Meta experienced earlier this week, you can find me on LinkedIn. Naureen Ahmed, type it in. If you're in hospitality, you should find me straight away.
Yeah, absolutely. And I'm very blessed to be a member of Naureen's community. She is amazing. So thank you so much, Naureen. We really value you and appreciate you having you here today. Thank you, thank you, thank you.
Thank you, Hulya, for having me today and giving me a moment to share my thoughts as well and putting me on the other seat. And it is so wonderful to have you part of the community as well. And you've done some wonderful things in there already too. So thank you.
My pleasure.